We have gone live now with Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, not Instagram, because I'm interviewing someone. How could I possibly go live? And you would only hear me, you know? So Instagram, I go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Monday, Wednesday, Friday also, but it could be just like a random Thursday, like today. Why? Because Brad Hightower has been killing it, okay, in the podcast space. And Brad Hightower, for those that don't know, Brad, uh, why don't you give us like an introduction or a brief like bio of who you are, and then I could get some more bites in of my lunch.
Go for it. Yeah, so I started out in clinical research about 12 years ago at a university level. Uh, kind of struggled my way through learning how to do it, as many people do. The story I hear over and over again. People kind of fall into clinical research by accident, struggle their way through it till they either figure it out or decide they hate it and move on. I stuck it out. Became a director of research at a large heart hospital in Oklahoma City. It was okay. It just seemed everywhere I went, nobody was doing it quite right. There's a lot of lack of efficiency, a lot of crazy over institutionalized processes. So about 3 years ago, I broke out on my own, started I guess what I'd call, a sort of an integrated site network. I don't know what I call it, something different every time. I feel like I'm still trying to land on the best label for what it is, but
Integrated site network's good. You can. That's actually a good challenge for anybody in the industry who wants to create a company, especially a site or a network of sites, is to just come up with like your own acronym because everyone's doing it. I mean, this is how SMOs get started. And Brad,
right.
if your companies like start getting super successful, everybody's gonna call themselves, integrated site network too. So you might be a pioneer in
Right.
this. You might be a
Well,
pioneer.
I think the more acronyms you have, the better you are, obviously. So, no, so that's kind of where we are today. I'm working primarily, in a large part, with a local hospital, big hospital system. So it's been great. We're expanding into all the different therapeutic areas there. We've also got a standalone site where we're working with some independent interventional cardiologists, family practice, dermatology. So, we've had to pivot a lot throughout the last 2 or 3 years, but I think we're getting to a very very interesting place now where we're seeing a lot of growth, especially within a large hospital group. That's really kind of changed the game for what we've been
Hmm.
doing.
What is it like working with the hospital group? I would imagine, I mean, from an outside perspective, but everyone's like, "Oh, you're lucky, you're surrounded by doctors and patients." But what is it really like?
Well, frankly, when I started doing this, I never intended to work with another hospital system. I didn't want to because, you've got a lot of overpaid administrators who don't understand clinical research and how it works. Instead, they want to try to impede you every step of the way. You've got to coordinate with a bunch of departments who don't really have any buy-in with what's going on. It's just, again, it breeds inefficiency in a lot of ways in clinical research. So I've been very lucky that the group actually realized the value and they actually hired an internal director within their system. So I'm able to work with him as sort of a conduit. He's sort of an internal conduit, and we're the external side. So it actually makes my job super easy. So, uh, it took about a year and a half, I think, until again they really kind of saw the value. And in a little bit, all best was one person to help kind of grease the wheels from the inside and lets us do our jobs on the outside. We work together seamlessly. So as much as I was skeptical that it was going to work out, it's actually been pretty amazing. So I'm pretty happy about that. But I think that's sort of a lightning in the bottle, more rare outcome. I mean, I hope not. I hope that's something I can scale over time. But
Hmm.
it's worked out really well.
And you're based out of Oklahoma City for those that uh, are new to your brand. Everybody go follow Brad. And by the way, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, put your comments in. And we got Christine. Christine, we were just talking about you off camera. We're both huge fans of Christine Narro. We actually believe Christine Narro should host her own podcast. Um, but she's big on Clubhouse. She's the Clubhouse queen. Mari
Okay.
Mayorga, another longtime favorite of ours, and a Latino. Oh, and Christine, I gotta say, Christine's a Latinos in Clinical Research brand ambassador. So shout out to Christine. Mari
Yep.
Mayorga, how's it going? One of the smartest and nicest people that I know on social media. So you guys, if you have questions for Brad or myself, let me know. Brad, being in Oklahoma City probably has its advantages in the sense that there's not much competition. Has that changed since our last podcast?
No, no, there's still really no competition. It's a a low standard of living in Oklahoma City, so I think the budgets go a lot further.
Yeah, they do.
So a budget here versus a budget in New York City is going to be if if they're the same, that's a lot more money here than it is somewhere else. So
In
that's
Orange
that's a big
County.
advantage.
What about
Yeah,
Newport?
sure.
What about Newport Beach, California, Brad? Our
Yeah.
rents are high out here.
Yeah,
uh,
I lived in Seattle for a little while, and I don't ever want to pay anything close to what I paid to live out there. So no, I'm happy to be
yeah.
away from the coast in that way, in that regard.
I've envied the clients and just people I've networked with like yourself who have been in, let's just say, underserved areas because Oklahoma City is not a small city. I mean, it's a big city, but it's underserved and there's not much competition. And so I finally get to join the club in July, hopefully. Knock on wood, my house is built by July, or otherwise it's gonna be later. But I go to the small place in Arizona called Yuma, Arizona.
Nice.
For
Been to
those that
Yuma.
know, it's on the border of California, Arizona, and Mexico. So it'll be interesting. I'm going there with I have a plan in mind. I want to sell. I'm building that site to sell it, specifically to sell it, because I
Nice.
plan to come back to California within 5 years. So I've never done that before. I've never actually. So I get to join you now. Basically, I've been so used to Southern California applying for studies and then getting rejected because there's so many other sites that are doing the study here, right? And we're small, so we're not like ever a preferred site. We've been a preferred site maybe for a handful of sponsors.
Sure.
Um, we've still been able to do fairly well, but man, I know the power. I see the power of being in an underserved area with our clients. Like we have clients in Iowa, Idaho, Arkansas, like middle of the country, flyover states, uh, that just get every study we apply them for, which
Yeah, I
is
mean that
I'm
is the
jelly. I'm
advantage, I
jelly.
think.
I'm jelly, Brett.
Right. So yeah, we're able to pull from basically the whole state. Not that that's. I mean, I think that there's probably more people in LA than there are in the whole state of Oklahoma. If I had to guess, I think we're at like 4 million, somewhere like that. But we can
But how do
pull
you pull from the whole
from the whole
state? Like
state.
you send an Uber to the one corner of the state for the
Heck
office?
yeah, that's exactly what we do. Yeah, so we work with a local like medical transport company, and we get the sponsor to pay for it. If they want patients in the studies, we're going to drive
Wait,
them in.
so you can drive like from one corner of Oklahoma to the other? It's got to be a long drive.
It is. I mean, it is. We aren't getting people from like literally the panhandle, but I mean, we have
Okay,
people
okay.
who will come from a 2 or 3 hour trip for some of the
Wow, no
studies that we're doing.
kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, and again,
That's something that's different that is unique to those kind of areas and that you don't see that here in LA or Orange County or Southern California in general. You just don't see that.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's just more stuff. you don't you
Hmm.
don't have to drive that far to get what you need. But like, we're doing a post amputation pain study. It's a device trial. There's not a whole lot of sites in the country, but we're bringing in patients from Kansas and Arkansas, and
Post
again
amputation.
driving them.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
an
I,
amazing study.
that would make sense that the sponsors will. I mean, those are like unique patients. You don't just get them like, everywhere. I mean, that's they'd be willing to pay for. I've actually worked on a study. It was a spinal surgery study, and the sponsor was willing to fly patients in from different parts of the country, even to our site
Yeah,
here in LA.
yeah,
So,
it's crazy.
yeah, I guess for the right study, sponsors willing to do anything. This actually, Brad, this leads me to a very interesting segue that we can talk about, which is, and by the way, guys, put your comments, questions, concerns. Brad and I are gonna go for how much time you have, Brad?
Uh, I got about I got about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay, perfect, perfect. So get your questions going, guys. But this, I was doing the Site Owner Academy, and we have a new site owner, and he was asking, well, hey Dan, I've got a research naive PI, and I'm not sure how to approach sponsors. I don't know how to get the first study. And I said, look, what you've got to do, you've got to eat your veggies. I'm going to be like your mom and tell you you got to eat your veggies. And what I mean by that is you got to go on clinicaltrials.gov every day, and at least 5 contacts you got to email. And I listened to your podcast with one of our Patreon members. Whenever you have one of our Patreon members, I listen. I especially listen. Brad's podcast is
Sure.
really good, by the way. Note to File podcast. Go listen. It's amazing podcast, Brad. I
Thank you.
can't wait to hear more episodes. I listened to the one with Stephanie Jabour from
Uh-huh.
Florida. And you said this too. You're like, you know what? At the beginning, it's just a lot of grunt work, messaging people on clinicaltrials.gov. To me, that's the equivalent of like eating your veggies if you want to lose weight. We all would rather eat Fast Break, Reese's Pieces, candy bar, but that's not going to do you any good, right? You got to eat your veggies if you want to lose weight. So the same thing, if you're starting out and you have a new site and a research naive PI, sponsors are not coming to you. Now, here's your strength. This is where people go wrong, and job seekers are no different. Everybody thinks about themselves first. Like, oh, well, how can I pitch my email to where I look good? Or something like about them. I tell them that's nonsense. It's irrelevant. Sponsors could care less. And then you inevitably get this email pitch that says, "Hey, my PI is very interested in condition XYZ because he's written an article." They just go on a tangent. This is nonsense. The sponsor could care less what you're interested in. What
Right.
they want, especially in 2021, is what? They want diverse patient population in their studies, so minorities. They want patients that are research naive. They don't want patients jumping around from study to study. And they want retention. Retention.
Right.
Okay? Brad and I both do our own due diligence on biotechs, or at least Brad used to. You're busy now. I do it for my YouTube. I do due diligence, okay?
I only buy meme stocks now.
Meme stocks are bad. Who needs due diligence? You just buy
Right.
GameStop. Um, so during due diligence, a lot of times you'll see FDA doesn't approve a drug because they don't have enough long-term data from that study. Why? Because of retention. This happens a lot, guys. And the sponsor has to come back and spend a couple million more, 8 figures more, to do another study, which is a complete waste of time for them because they already know the drug works. They just need to check the boxes that it works, that it's safe long term, which everybody knows, but the FDA says no, we insist on this. So put yourself in the sponsor's shoe. They don't care that you're interested. They don't care. They could care less. I know it sounds bad, but they could care less what you're interested in. They care minority population, diversity, uh, patients that will stay in your study, and the fact that the patients trust you, the site, the PI.
Right.
What is your thoughts on this, Brad?
No, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, first, to go back to the beginning, I mean, when you're starting out, you just have to work your ass off. You got to grind and grind and grind and grind. And when you think that you've done enough, do 10 more. That's really, it's not a secret. It's just, you got to do that. So, yeah, hustle on clinicaltrials.gov. Expect to be told no 90 times, and maybe you'll get yes once. And then, for the second part, yeah, I mean, sell your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses. I've I've not really ever had a huge problem getting research naive physicians trials in my experience. Now, they haven't gotten every trial, but I mean, there are registries
What's
out there to
your
get people started. There are, other strategies you can take. But I mean, if you can sell your strong points, or if you've got the experience as the coordinator, whatever makes you, stand out, considering you don't have, experience from your PI. Get a sub
yeah?
I that does.
What's your like? How do you handle that objection when sponsors tell you, well, Does your PI have experience in research? How do you handle that when your PI doesn't?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's a matter of saying, look, we've assembled a research team that's got all this experience. We're certified coordinators. You know, a lot of times we've worked within that particular therapeutic area. Um, we've got a patient population that matches. We know what we're doing. We can negotiate a budget in 2 weeks. We can do all these things. Again, sell your strong points
Mm-hmm.
because you know a lot of the great places that have a ton of experience, again, a large institution, you might be able to get started and enrolled before they can even get their study approved by their local IRB. You
That's
know what I'm
right.
saying?
That's
So
right.
play to the strengths that you have.
You have strengths if you're small. A speedboat can go 180 degrees on a dime. The Titanic is going to take 3 hours to turn around, make a U-turn, right?
Yeah. But I
And
mean,
that's when they're not sinking.
right. So I mean, I really think it's not rocket science. Like I've been awarded a study when I did an SSV, and all I had in the room was me and a refrigerator. We were just setting up the site. There was literally a chair for me, a chair for the monitor, and a locked refrigerator in the room. And I said to go back on my experience to say, look, I know what needs to be done. I've done this hundreds of times before. Here's what we're going to do, and instill that confidence in the sponsor that you're trying to work with. You got to sell yourself a little bit.
Everything in research, it's selling yourself. And, to bring this back to the job seekers out there, it's the same thing. It's the same principle. It's like put yourself. I know it's like goes against like your intuition because we're all considering our own needs first, which we should. I mean, you have to be focused on how you're gonna make a living and things like that. But you've you have to have some empathy for the other stakeholder. And if you're a job seeker and you've interviewed coordinators, I mean, you can just tell the ones that get it think of you, right? I mean, they can think of themselves too, but they at least consider what you need as well. And they've done maybe their research beforehand to kind of know, okay, well, I see that you're doing surgery studies and or anything that shows interest in you and not just them is a good sign to me.
Right.
And you know what? Interestingly enough, when you take that mentality, it's just like public speaking. I used to be terrified of public speaking. Because why? Because I was thinking about me. Oh, how I'm going to look. What if I say something bad? What if I stutter? People are going to think I'm dumb. People could care less. All right? People,
Right.
you're there to give them some value. Once you put yourself in their shoes, what do these people need? It makes it so much easier because you're just now a conduit of information. You're not like trying to be something special, right? You're just
Right.
there to help them. So
Right.
same
And like
thing
you
when you're
said,
seeking studies, seeking a job, same principle.
yeah, the little things you care about, they don't care about at all. So you just gotta,
No,
yeah, you just gotta put it out there.
they could care less if I stammer or if I clear my throat. They don't care about this stuff. Just
Right.
like a sponsor
Right.
could care less that your PI is interested from an academic perspective or a philosophical perspective in
right.
like an indication.
Sure.
Who cares? They already have their key opinion leaders. That's not going to be
Right.
you, at least right now. Maybe later, but not right now. So they care about what can you do for them. Janet Jackson said it best. What have you done for me lately? Uh, speedboat, small site, diamonds. Neha says, I agree. That's right, Neha. What do you think, Neha? All these comments from LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been an interesting place in 2021 for clinical research, and in 2020. What do you think about LinkedIn? Your thoughts on the content, the stuff you're seeing, the good and the bad. I don't know if you get like the spammy emails. What do you think? What are your thoughts on LinkedIn?
So, I mean, frankly, for me, I don't use a lot of social media other than LinkedIn, and it's just because it's professionally. I prefer to keep my social media professional use. I don't do anything personal really. So, I mean, honestly, it's been pretty much the sole source of a lot of information for me. I mean, I think it's good seeing more people start to create content. We talked a little bit about before people creating good and valuable content for the clinical research space.
Hmm.
I think it's still too heavily dominated by the pharma side. Like
Mm.
everything I see seems to be these pharma guys talking, about trials. And, obviously they have a huge role in things, but
Mm-hmm.
being able to see more of that on a site level, I think would be, uh, you know, valuable. Somebody had posted a comment recently about how, it's real top down in clinical research. Like the sponsor
I
says
saw
what to
that.
do and everybody does it. And I was like, well, shit, that's right, but it doesn't have to be, like we have the ability to some degree to go bottom up, but I think that's part of it is having more of these conversations amongst, sort of the site level people out there.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think I saw that top down. I wanted to comment, but I just didn't because and then I saw your comment. So bottom line is the sponsors are paying for the study. It's again back to what we talked about. Like what do they want? They don't care. Do you think a sponsor care that you want to run a bottom up culture in your site? They care less,
Right.
Brad.
Right.
They don't care about that. But it opens up a can of worms, and I want to do I kind of mentioned this in my live stream yesterday, and I think there's a lot to unpack. Again, it's just opinion. I don't care if it pisses people off, but and it's related very much so to what you and I, Brad, discussed after I was on your podcast last year when we went off camera. It's probably better than the stuff that was on the camera. But
Right.
but a lot of it were these kind of themes like, hey, this is all dominated right now by think tanks, basically think tank type of people. And they throw out things like patient centricity and top down, bottom up stuff. Like what is the practical value of that? You know what I came to the conclusion recently, and it's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I think the CROs have gotten too big, and I think they're the ones that are stifling innovation because I don't see it from the sponsor. The sponsors are more open to doing things differently. You know, CROs, and it's only getting worse. Look what yesterday Icon just bought PRA.
Yeah, I saw that.
The big just gonna get bigger. Like,
Right.
and I've heard from sites, and I've personally experienced it where the CRO tells me no because I want to do something maybe from bottom up. I didn't even realize that's what I'm trying to do, but that's what I'm trying to do. And the CRO says no. The CRO even blames the sponsor. Okay, and then when you
Right.
talk to the sponsor about it, they say, "What? What are you talking about? That's not a bad idea."
Right.
So there's something there, man. With the CROs are
Well,
getting too big, and I've heard it from many a sponsor already. Small sponsors.
so that's I mean, brilliant. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I mean, all these conversations, like you said, about uh, patient centricity, decentralized trials. Well, the guys talking about it are the guys writing the checks. If they want it to be done, it would be done, right?
Hmm.
They've got more resources than anybody. They've got more skin in the game than anybody. So why are we talking about it and why isn't it just happening? Right? Like these high level dudes all agree, let's do it. Great. We've been talking about it for 2 years, 10 years, So who's either not incentivized to do it or where's there a sort of disconnect in the chain, and maybe it's not in the
The
CRO's
former.
best interest to do that.
It's not. It's the former. Who's disincentivized to do this?
Right.
It's the CROs. I mean, think about it. Their business operations are run like a factory. I mean, this is what we do. This is our expected profit margin. This is how many days on site CRA's got to do.
Right.
This is so when the sponsor tells them, "Hey, we want patient centricity. We want like a hybrid model. We want to make it easier for the sites." CROs don't care about this, but they have to pretend like they do. So they eventually adopt these things out of necessity because the sponsors get fed up and say, "Look, you gotta, these other guys said they're gonna do this, so you gotta do this." And in the
Right.
article I read yesterday with the Icon buying PRA, basically Icon bought PRA because of their tech capabilities, which Icon's apparently was behind on. And so I think the fact that these CROs have become so dominant, I mean, they're bigger than most of the sponsors, their market caps.
Right.
Um, I think that's stifling innovation. That's preventing the ever elusive patient centricity. Um, eSource, getting the data into the EDC directly from eSource. This is my opinion, but
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of that stuff would do away with some of the offerings from the CROs, I would guess. If you can, if there's an adopted e-source that with an API that goes straight into Rave, I mean, that doesn't that take away a lot of the on the ground work?
that's coming in 5 years, Brad. I know
Yeah,
who's gonna do it. It's a
yeah.
household name already, but I'll tell you off camera because
Fair enough.
I'll do a stock video on it. How about that? Uh,
There you go.
Christine says, "What's in it for me?" Exactly right. Exactly what the sponsors care about, and the CROs care about this too. What's in it for me? Well, patient centricity, we understand, but what's in it for me? Like, are CROs really wanting trials to be more efficient? I don't think so. They get paid more if the trial's delayed and goes on longer.
Well, and, dude, look at everything they do. I swear, Icon has been to my site probably. How many site selection visits does one CRO need to do before they know your site? Right? Like maybe there are study
Mm.
specific questions to be had, but like, dude, this is the same freezer the last three guys looked at. You know, like that's not efficient at all. It's
Mm. Good point.
crazy. But I'm guessing that they're getting paid to be out there,
Of
so
course they are.
they're
I've
gonna make
been
them.
with my tiny, minuscule CRO that does investigator-initiated trials. Right now, only two. We've submitted bids for bigger studies, and this is what we were basically competing on: is how many days on site. These guys said they can do it in X amount of time. How much do you charge for monitoring visits? That's the bulk of where the CROs make their money.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, we got questions. We got time for questions. By the way, put your questions in the comments right now. LinkedIn has been good so far to me. This is from Neha. I actually have gotten a lot of information, contacts, and found you on LinkedIn. Very good. Make sure you go find Brad right now. For someone like me who's trying to get my foot in the door, this is a really good place to look for resources. Absolutely true, Neha. And actually, Brad, what is your thoughts on, speaking of LinkedIn, before we go on to more questions, networking on LinkedIn? What's the right way to do it? What are your pet peeves on this?
Yeah. So I mean, it goes back to, and it took me a while to learn this myself, but it goes back to what you said before. Like, it should be more think about adding value rather than just asking people. Don't message somebody and say like, "I need a job." Well, no shit. A lot of people need a job. Like what do you what do you want from me? I'm not somebody who gets people jobs, and
Mhm.
not that again. I think if you want to connect with somebody, at least first of all, just be a human being. Like talk
Mhm.
like a human being. Don't send a spam like template message. Especially if you forget to change the name. From the
Mhm.
last person that you copied from.
I would
But
say
I'd
that's
say
a
like
pet peeve too.
right. But I'd say go out and find these conversations and start a conversation. Don't just come in asking for something, but if you can get yourself in the conversation, create a relationship, provide value, and oftentimes people they want to provide value back once you provide value to them, and that's it doesn't have to be completely transactional. It's more uh, building the relationship. So I mean, again, I would just treat it like you would a human being. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't walk up to somebody and be like, "Do you have any jobs, sir?" Like, I would get to know this person, or
That's literally every hour on LinkedIn. Here's my
right,
CV. Hey, Dan, I've never talked to you before. This is my friend connection request. Here's my CV. If you know anyone hiring, it's like, why would I even open your CV? I'm not hiring right now. Like, you need to go interact and go drop comments in LinkedIn. If you do what like Neha's doing, she's doing it the right
yeah,
way. Just go
exactly,
watch people's live streams, comment on their posts, and keep doing it, and people start to know you. Now, if Neha emailed me, I'm going to remember her. She's the one who's been active on the live stream. I'm more incentivized to help, not just, some stranger I never met.
yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
this is a question for you, Brad, and Murunga. Brad, when you talked about selling your strength, you said certified coordinators can be used as a selling point for sites with research naive PIs. Do you mean certified by ACRP?
Yeah, ACRP or SOCRA. I know that I don't remember what SOCRA's is. CCRP maybe, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you can show that, even though maybe your investigator lacks some experience, they've got a team around them that's going to support them, train them through the process, and you know, really help keep their arms around things. And I think that just gets strengthened by being certified. In the interest of full disclosure, I actually recently let my CCRC lapse. Uh,
Oh,
so
yours?
I'm not technically currently a CCRC right now.
Oh
So
man, you're
don't
not in
tell
the
anybody.
cool kids club. I've never
Yeah.
been certified for anything. Um,
Dude,
it's
I really didn't know if I wanted to. I went ahead and did it just because it was kind of the thing to do at the place I
hmm
worked. And
hmm
I think it's like anything else. If you really want to go work it, it can probably be useful. Like if you go into ACRP's website, really use their content, it's probably valuable. I don't think for me it was, other than to say, hey, look at me, I have CCRC after my name.
I think it gives the sponsor more faith in your site, especially if your PI is research naive. Because even if you had like 15 years of experience as a coordinator, but you don't have like a certification of CCRP or anything. I mean, just seeing that next to your name is like a stamp of approval by some organization that's arbitrarily been deemed worthy of blessing us with these
Right.
letters.
Right. No, that's
Um,
true.
so that's what it really is. I mean, it just makes it easier for the sponsor to say, okay, rather than looking through the CV. In my
Sure. At least
opinion,
say, hey, this guy took a test and passed it. So
that's right.
he knows some things.
He knows a thing or two, enough to pass. Sometimes when you tell them what you can bring to the table, sometimes your inexperience just outshines my skills and motivation. Yeah, Christine's clapping. Who can make it happen for decentralized trials? Um, yeah, decentralized trial is something interesting because I think obviously the industry's headed in that direction, but if we're not even able to integrate, or like even more practical, what Brad said, if we're not even able to skip site selection visits from the same CRO for sites, like how are we gonna possibly be siteless and just have patients joining from sponsors? Um, sponsors don't have a good reputation, nor is it their core competency to communicate with patients. They're great on the sales side, like they hire sales reps and they put ads on the Super Bowl or daytime TV for drugs. But how, like, clinical research has a branding issue, so you're always going to need the sites. Even the good sites, they have a lot of hurdles to jump just to get one patient convinced that clinical research is safe. I mean, even if that's your own patient, like from your own doctor, right?
Yeah, well,
Um,
that alone, right, is a huge like question mark in my mind. Like, I can't tell you. I mean, most people can tell you, if how much easier it is to get the physician's patient in versus a Facebook lead or something like that, where they don't know who they're calling, they don't know who you are, they don't know if you're legit or what's going on. You know what I mean? So, and if that's the norm, I just think you're gonna have crazy. It's gonna be difficult to overcome that sort of lack of familiarity in the process because I've been telling people this: clinical research is customer service.
hmm.
It's basically customer service, right? Like we have to listen and engage with a patient in order to understand and relate to them. We have to build a relationship where they trust us and where they're going to keep coming back to your site, to go back to the retention issue. And that can't be only clinical. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we're too clinical in clinical research, and
Exactly right.
we're not
Great
really sort
point.
of connecting, with these people. And I think the way that's most easily done, again, is through your physician and through inpatient, sometimes in-person visits.
Great point. You reminded me of a conversation I had yesterday with someone from my Patreon. They own a site. Um, I won't name them because I don't know if they want that, but they basically do pediatric studies and adult studies. But they had this one particular pediatric study they did very well on. The sponsor was very impressed. And what it boiled down to was the core of the issue. There were two things. The kids didn't like to go to doctors, so the parents kind of gave up on dragging the kids out of the house all the time. As soon as the kids got better, all right, so they joined the study within the first couple of visits because the drug works. The kids got better, but the kids didn't like because they don't like going to doctor. So then they stopped showing up. This is what was happening at other sites. At this site, they had almost 100% retention rate because they treat patient centricity not as a buzzword, right? But as something tangible that you can actually do day in and day out, like eating your veggies.
Right.
Okay. What they did was they made the kids feel like it's a fun place to be. They had movies, games. They had a dedicated person that would just hang out with the kid the entire time. They didn't feel like they're in a doctor office. The parents told that site, this kid hates the doctors, but they want to come. They can't wait to come to the next visit. They would give them stuff, like all kinds of things. So this is patient centricity to me,
Right. Right.
right?
And that's genius, honestly. I mean, that's something, I mean, small in some ways, but it makes a freaking world of difference. That's crazy.
And
I
it's
love that.
nothing to do with clinical. Matter of fact,
Right.
it's the opposite because the kids hate going to their doctors. So and I know we're all in clinical research, it's clinical, but you gotta, and then to translate this to the adult studies, you gotta create like almost like a spa-like experience for the patients. Craig Lipset wrote an article when Donald Trump got the VIP treatment in he was in a study. So Craig Lipset wrote an article. I thought it was good. He said we need to all sites need to give patients like this VIP experience, and it's absolutely true. So like just getting them breakfast when they come in, giving them a cookie or something. I mean, it
Sure.
just goes a long way. Bottled water. It's amazing how many sites as a CRA I go to because I monitor also, and I see sites in this. I can't tell if it's a research clinic or if it's a doctor office, and the research patient's waiting just like everybody else. So
Right.
they don't feel special being in the
Right.
study. I mean, so there's a lot of practical things that sites can do. You don't, and that talk about bottom up. I mean, there you go, right there. You don't need approval from Harvard or anybody, to do this bottom up approach.
Right.
Like,
No, that's true.
go look at spas. Go look at what spas are doing. I think in many states they're open again. All right, go look. Go see how they treat you when you go to a spa, even a bad one.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, they want to. They have to want to be there. They have to want to come in, and whether that's through, again, even sometimes something small. Offer them coffee. Have some snacks laying around, and then just again, listening, building a relationship. I mean, again, I've got an employee that didn't have a big clinical background. He doesn't, but he will retain patients because he loves talking to them, and they
Mm.
love talking to him, and because he listens to them. He's not just there to say, okay, any A's, SAs, any illnesses, injuries, sickness? No, you've been taking your medication? Yes. Okay. Great. No medication changes. Okay, cool. Well, see you in 6 weeks. It's taking the time to invest a little bit of yourself in these patients. So it's
Mhm.
again, I think it's very much analogous to customer service, and the more we think about it that way, the more successful you'll be in your enrollment and your retention.
Absolutely right. Patient centricity is about more about the things you can control as a site as opposed to blaming a sponsor or CRO for not making it happen. We had in our clubhouse, shout out to Christine, who's a clubhouse queen, by the way. We had in our clubhouse, everybody hit her up on LinkedIn if you want the invite. We had on our clubhouse, Brad, a patient show up. A patient, so like what they call like the empowered patients, so very savvy patient
Sure.
came in, talked about their clinical trial experience, talked about how they didn't feel they were appreciated. Um, she said even something like, if I would have gotten a certificate thanking me for my participation because they finished the whole trial, or like maybe like if we can be put on a call with the sponsor, letting us know what the study results were. Um, just the little things.
Yeah.
Like it's not complicated.
So, I mean, someone's probably already thought of this, but this is my $1 million idea. Like, why isn't there some gamification in clinical trials, right? Like, give them all an app, and everyone's maybe de identified or whatever. They can, I don't know, maybe you're competing with other research participants to like have the highest, you know, usage of medication, 100%. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
whatever. Why I feel like there's definitely some room to make it an experience that's, I mean, fun. You know, if not
Yeah.
at least engaging, not just
Right.
the people who set their medication on their counter and then forget about it, or we give them these like 10-year-old Samsung phones to take home as e-diaries and they won't connect to anything no matter what you try.
The Obama
There's got to
phones.
be right. So I feel like there's something missing somewhere. And again, even like you said, something as simple as a certificate or
Yeah.
something that's engaging them again, like
That stuck out to me because I was like, I never really think. I mean, we've had in my 15 years now of doing this, I maybe had three sponsors that gave us like certificates or like gifts. Like at visit 6, give them this
yeah, you get like a
thermos.
water jug or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
yeah. And like I think those are good. Like those things go, and they need to do that again. That has been less frequent than in the past, not more. We need more of that. Which site visit most prominent or most important? I would say IMV for a CRA. That's the meat of the dish. Um, but if you're a site, probably the site selection visit. We
yeah.
need a
Right.
lecturer for CRA in Arabic. Mafish mushkala. That's all I know. Uh, we need to know about software. There's a lot. Let's
So
go through
I
some of these questions.
I
Oh,
say
go ahead, Brett.
I want to do a podcast series or video series with software about software. So that's something I'd like, and because there's not a ton out there, but there's enough to where I don't want to demo 5 different CTMS systems. Like, anyways, I think that's just a little tick
There's
there.
there's a
I'd like
there's a
to
niche
see.
there.
I think just doing reviews, software reviews. Like
Oh
that would
man,
be pretty
you'd get
easy.
sponsored in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
Uh,
until you give them a bad review.
I have a bio degree, but I'm having trouble landing my first CRC job. What are some other entry level positions to explore? I mean, you can do research assistant. I think you need to reach out and research the clinics before you go interview. Um, because as you're saying, you're having trouble landing your first job. Maybe it goes back to how we opened this video. You need to put yourself in the employer's shoes, is my suggestion. Um, Christine, join a research organization like Latinos in Clinical Research, Heidi. Exactly. Christine
Nice.
gets it. Christine gets it.
And I see
And then
someone
she
asking
says,
how to
we'll
use
do.
LinkedIn. That's how right there. The way
That's
Christine's
how
using it.
we don't even need to do it. Just look at what Christine's doing. This is how she could write a book, textbook 101. And Christine says she has a podcast idea. So would love to hear
Perfect.
from you, Christine. I just had a big CRO SQV site qualification visit skipped for 2 sites I'm working with. First time I've seen this in 10 years. I hope this is getting more common. Regards. There you go, Brad.
Well, all right, you made a liar out of me.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. My research mentor pushed VIP treatment. Yep, VIP treat. It's all we have, guys. It is my experience at teaching hospitals and universities that time is money, and we get pressed to deliver and deliver on point. And with DoD, Department of Defense, maybe. Oh Lord, it's patient centricity is tough at these AMCs. I mean, this is what we were talking about: speedboat versus the Titanic. Brad and I, we have smaller sites. I mean, we can do whatever we want, but we're talking about the bottom up approach. For these kind of places, you probably need to really read that article from Harvard and consider the bottom up approach because you're going to need approvals. Then somebody smart on your team is going to say, okay, Harvard wrote about this, so this must be good. Shout out to Christine for getting me invite to Clubhouse. You see, guys, this is how you
Out there
network.
doing work.
Christine at this point can message anybody on LinkedIn and she won't get ignored. I agree. Small things we can do to make it better experience. Patient retention is even more important than patient recruitment. I would say more important. Maybe free lunch, snacks if they have to wait so long. Exactly, exactly. Even sending a Uber, like I mean, it's amazing how some sites don't even validate parking for their patients. And again, it's mostly these AMCs, academic medical centers and institutions. And I don't know. I mean, smaller sites, they tend to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said though. I mean, we've got the freedom to be a little more experimental, and I had to try a couple things before I found, like the right ride share group to work with
Hmm.
locally,
Hmm.
and yeah, but just like she's saying here, it doesn't need to be. You have some granola bars and like some bags of chips in your office. I mean,
Yeah,
patients will love that if they have to, especially if they have to sit there, being observed for any reason. I mean, it's not steak and
it's just
lobster,
the
but
little
it's enough,
things. It's the
right?
little things, guys. It's like when you, back in the day before COVID, when we would take Ubers. Where I think we're getting back to that now. I have yet to be in an Uber since COVID, though. But, like, the drivers that get 5 stars, guess what? They usually always have a clean car, bottled water, charger, maybe some snacks, some mints. The ones that get like 4 star, like on the lower four, they don't have any of that stuff. It's not a lot to go to Costco and buy like those little quarter waters and just have them in your trunk, right? It's not difficult. Patient centricity is no different.
That's right.
No different. Silent Mike was interesting, Christine, on Clubhouse. This is like so foreign to me. It's you go on in this room, Brad, on Clubhouse, which is a voice app, and everyone's just silent. It's like a moment of silence, but the whole thing. And I was like weirded out, so I started unmuting myself because I thought no one's talking. I don't read instructions, and I saw, oh, you gotta be. You basically just click everyone's bio and follow them, and that's a good way to
Hmm,
network. Actually,
interesting.
it
Yeah.
was foreign to me. So yeah, every Friday night, for those of you on iPhone, hopefully soon on Android. So Brad, this is for you. Clubhouse was made for you, man.
Yeah. Well, I need Android support, man.
I know. We need to request this. So anything else, Brad, that we didn't cover that you want to cover?
No, I don't think so. I mean, again, I think it's very cool keeping up with your what you're doing on the stock side with the biotechs now. I like that. I like that diversification there, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I found it's a good way. You know what's interesting? It's making me a better researcher because like we were talking off camera. We're so caught up in the operations. Like, I don't know about you, and I miss this. When I was coordinating the studies, I would get caught up in the science. Like, I would look at the protocol, I would look up the drug on Google, learn a little bit about it on Wikipedia. I don't do that anymore. Like, it's like just, we're dishing out studies like Luka Doncic, just like there's one,
Right.
there's another. We don't even care. And I miss that because I think we need to come back to reality of what this is about. So now researching these biotechs, I'm actually learning, more of like what's new, what's cutting edge, what's CRISPR, what's gene editing, what's DNA sequencing. I'm learning these things. And it's not just make me a better investor. I think that's like a second very far away thing. That takes time, but it's making me a better researcher. And I can have more intelligent conversations now with doctors and with staff. So I think that's been a benefit. Besides growing my YouTube channel, of course.
Of
That's why I
course.
initially did it. But I've
That's what
learned, that
works.
this is why it's helping me become actually a better researcher too.
Sure. No, man, I say thanks for having me on. You've, again, always been an inspiration to me. So I value any time we get to sit and talk. So thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
man.
Brad. Thank you for coming on short notice. I saw your picture on LinkedIn yesterday, and the algorithm liked it. It showed it to me, and keep doing your thing because everybody needs to go follow Note to Follow podcast and go follow Brad Hightower on LinkedIn. And thank you very much, Brad. I appreciate it.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you guys for watching, listening, and catch y'all later. Like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, hit the bell button, all that good stuff. Bye bye.